Hey shy people, what is your worst experience? My husband got me to go to a party with him at our friend's house. Got there, friend hugged me hello, and then said wow you smell really good, and then I swear to god everyone got up and went I want to smell, and I was surrounded by people sniffing me seconds after walking into a party. I wanted to die. It wasn't even perfume or anything, it was my hair oil. If I could afford therapy this would definitely come up. I think I died of second-hand embarrassment. Sat at the back of the class in Spanish when the teacher from the front asks a question. Being the little nerd I was in school, my hand shot up. The teacher then looked over, pointed directly at me and said "Sí, señorita." I was a very feminine, underdeveloped and late through puberty 15-year-old boy with longer than usual hair. I stopped answering any teacher's questions willingly from that point. I wouldn't say this is my worst experience, but it's amusing to me. I was setting up a network in a small satellite office and was still working when the last other person left. It was nighttime and they didn't see me or know I was still there, so they turned out all the office lights as they left. I left them off because I enjoy working in the dark and do it often. After like an hour another worker came back into the office to do something or another, and rather than have to say hi I opted to hide under the desk I was at in an open office as a 35-year-old man. I'm not sure why I did that, but luckily they didn't notice me and left again after about 15 minutes. NGL. Had to chuckle at this. Sounds like something I would do rather than explaining to the person that I enjoy working in the dark and seeming kinda weird. Had a high school buddy who was sworn to silence to most people, even teachers, yet a select few kids he'd talk to. Funniest guy I've ever met. Said he's gone full years without saying a word to his own teachers. Putting a year's worth of confidence into a job interview, just to be the quiet one after you get the job. The anxiety dude. While going to college I interned for the state's largest business development corporation. In a meeting with C-suite executives, the top dog was just making friendly conversation before we got started and asked me what classes I was taking. To set the picture, I am just a pure note taker and would never expect anyone to even notice that I was there, let alone put me on the spot with a long table of successful professionals staring at me. I blacked out. Zero brain function. I mumbled a few inaudible grunts and ums before having no choice but to admit that I couldn't remember. Oh my dog. I wanted to die. The looks of confusion and the awkward century that it took to switch topics amongst themselves still haunts me before bed. That is profound. Went to a party. Guy I've never met walks up to me, shakes my hand, and says hello. What's your name? Where were you born? Where will you die? What's in between? Not letting go of my hand the whole time. I completely locked up, had no idea what to say. Oh, okay. My name's John. I was born in Milwaukee. Judging by this conversation I'm probably going to die at this party and the in-between will be you murdering me. Nice to meet you. I was in elementary and took a bus home each day. I missed my stop and I was so terribly shy and quiet the bus driver didn't hear me. He went on to pick up high school students and didn't notice I was still on the bus. The high school students were so sweet and kind. They alerted the bus driver and he took me home. My mom was freaking out by the time I got home. Happened to me too. Freaking wackiest crap I ever experienced. I expected these older kids to be dongs. Then they're the nicest folks ever. Mandatory speech class when I was a freshman in college. I'd do the thing, then go back to my dorm and throw up. Really freaked out my roommate, who I barely spoke to. 5 speeches that semester. It was a nightmare. I am a bit shy when first meeting people, so after getting to know me, I often hear when I first met you, I thought you were such a b. Cool. I get told that I seem intimidating, which I always find bizarre. I was in a group therapy session as a kid, like maybe 14. I really had to go to the bathroom but we weren't allowed to during the session. I was sorta balled up in the center of the room. Not like emotional or anything, just sitting comfortably hugging my knees cause all the spots on the couch were taken. Some girl had just finished telling a story of her abuse. She was crying and there was no other sound. was sort of that awkward but respectful silence that fills the space when you wanna be supportive but saying anything at all would somehow seem inconsiderate. It was into this yawning void that I farted. I knew it was coming. It'd been staving off the gurgling in my stomach for some time now. It'd broken into a sweat already with the sheer effort of will to delay the inevitable. It was no use. I tried to discreetly shift my weight and maybe muffle the sound. I failed. This was neither silent nor deadly. It effortlessly shattered the silence like sledgehammer versus a Christmas ornament. Another moment of silence swallowed the sound, but it was a void of disbelief. Then some kid yelled as loud as they could. Jen farted and the entire room collapsed into helpless laughter while I promptly turned to stone and died on the spot. Hopefully it gave the crying girl a giggle too. In my high school Spanish class, some kid screamed, "Do you ever talk at me?" in front of the entire class. Super embarrassing at the time, but hilarious to look back on. Entering a new place for the first time, be it a shop or a bar or a restaurant, I'm always play the gentleman and hold the door open for my partner so she can assess the area before I sheepishly shuffle in behind. When you talk and people say things like, "Oh, I didn't know you could talk," or "This is the first time I hear you talking." I was at a friend's house. His parents used to scare me. The dad had a thick Asian accent and due to my nerves, I guess I wasn't paying attention. Didn't realize the dad was full on asking how I was, and I just stood there awkwardly. I thought he was speaking to his son in Cantonese. I still think about this. I never corrected my boss when she mixed up my name on the first day. I had already introduced myself to some people by my real name. The other half of the people my boss introduced me to called me another. I felt too shy to correct her in front of the group. It just led to more awkward conversations, as the two names were completely different. I have a bar that I used to go to in the before times, where I would play darts with some friends. It's a small bar, so the one bartender learned most people's names. It was after a few weeks that I realized that he was calling me the wrong name. I thought the previous times he had been talking to someone else. It's been too long now, so I won't correct him. Being told to lower your voice and shut up as a child. Then as a teen being told to speak up for myself more and answer when I am asked something. Then growing up never speaking unless spoken to or in case of emergency. As a shy girl I only talked when my friends did. I also didn't go to my teacher when I accidentally smashed my thumb with a hammer for a class project. Since I was trying my best to be quiet and not disturb anyone, I realized no one noticed I smashed my thumb up. So after recovering from almost fainting at the sight of my blood oozing out, I walked up to the teacher so I wouldn't bother anyone else and asked her if she had a first aid kit. She said, "Of course. Why? Did you hurt yourself?" And I just showed her my thumb, dripping with broken skin, and said, "Kinda." She was shocked I hadn't screamed or said anything for a good 10 minutes and immediately set off to get the first aid and help dress my injury. She knew I was quiet and shy, though I think it surprised her to realize to what extent. I figured I needed some help, and I absolutely had to ask, because my tiny first aid kit was only meant for paper cuts and small scrapes. Long story short, I was too shy to draw attention to my pain, and had to gather the courage and breath to ask for assistance. My shy buddy hated ordering coffee at the Starbucks in the Barnes & Noble bookstore. They cannot accept your order and take your money. They had about 6 questions they have to ask first. She couldn't stand it. Her, "I'd like a medium coffee." Them, "Do you want light roast or dark roast? We don't have medium. We have tall." "Okay. Do you need space for cream? What's your name? Are you part of the bookstore club? Are you part of the Starbucks points?" I'm not sure if I'm remembering it right, but I think at least once she panicked and walked away mid-interrogation. It's worst when English is not your first language. I went from being the anxiously shy kid to the anxiously talkative person that has no filter and people find annoying. The worse the social tension gets, the more I talk. The worse I make it, the more I talk. I had a roommate and I lived with for 2 months while I subletted a room. I used to talk to him for hours like every night after work. In my head, I'd justify thinking I was overthinking it, that he doesn't hate me. Why would he talk to me for so many hours? But then again, we never hung out outside the apartment. We're both busy. That's it. He's never called me back or talked to me since I moved out. kinda hard to dismiss the he thought you were crazy and only appeased you because he thought you would murder him in his sleep explanation. Well anyway, it turns out I can't avoid being psychotically talkative and later screaming into my pillow regretting it if I just avoid people. Is okay bro, it gets better. I am at the point where I notice that if after 2-3 conversation starters I don't get any responses I just sfoo and scram. I am an anxious person, so it eats me away for a little bit, but then I get busy and I forget lol. I went to this summer camp at a history museum around 4th grade. The second day they sprung on us that we would have to create a short play about a notable figure of our choice. I'm already terrified and I make it worse by choosing to do mine on Kalun, the dude who invented paper. The play ended up being a 30-second monologue that was basically a condensed biography with me wearing these musty silk robes. After I slunk back to my seat, I realized that everyone else did like actual plays with dialogue and plots and stuff. So embarrassing. Graduating basic training and having to walk across the stage, stop at the mic, execute a left face turn, state my name in the mic with a short pause between first and last name as a cue for the next row of guys to walk up. I completely fricked it up in front of everyone. Went to shake my drill sergeant's hand as a formality of the ceremony and he whispered to me, way to frick that up in front of everyone. Dipshit, frick off back to your seat. I fricking hate public speaking. Sounds exactly like my drill sergeant's lol. Someone took my order from the shelf at the online order station at Chipotle and I waited 45 minutes after the time it was supposed to be done before saying anything because I didn't want to be rude. Not the literal worst thing to happen to me, but it is what stopped me from going to Chipotle. I don't talk much in class, and I interact with only a few people. Some of my classmates just thought I hate them and cropped me out of their EOY class photos which they then posted on IG. I don't really care about their posts, I just felt really hurt they cropped me out. I hate video calls. I was going to drive 1.5 hours to my college to talk to a professor in person instead of just video calling to follow up on something. I have a theory on this one because I feel the same way. In-person interactions usually allow for a deeper level of connection when it's someone you are already familiar with. That can make us shy people less anxious, something that you totally lose over a video call. Having to explain our project in a seminar when the one who had to do the task didn't turn up was really shaking in the process. Our department section head at where I work will go on leave without warning, text and email at 5 AM for me to attend meetings in their place and I end up having to take lead on everything. I thought I'd get used to this by now but no. I freaking hate the first day of every class the teacher does the stupid let's do the icebreaker and go around the class and have everyone say a fun fact about yourself. God, I freaking hate that crap. Yep, this was one of the worst for me. Also the variation where you come up with a nickname for yourself and or have to repeat the nicknames of everyone who came before you. Worst one was probably when someone said why don't you talk and I just shrugged but they didn't get the joke and actually thought I was mute. I see this as an absolute win. I was having coffee with a friend one day. We had just been to the gym so I thought I was looking pretty disheveled. But maybe not because a guy came up to us and slid me a piece of paper with his number on it. He said he had seen me while driving by and thought I was beautiful and just had to stop and say hello. I was so caught off guard and just naturally awkward around strangers period that the only thing I could blurt out was if you think I'm cute now you should see me when I've bathed. He walked away. My friend laughed. I was embarrassed for days. That would have made me like you more. That's funny. I'm not shy but I'm one of those only talk when necessary types. I tell new people that I'm not shy and I am a low energy person so I'm always this mellow. There is nothing wrong with not having the energy of a 10-year-old who drank 3 Red Bulls. People do seem to take thing I say more seriously than others. People are different in that. Worst experiences are probably the people that talk about you right next to you, assuming you don't have a backbone. Ugh yes. This last experience has happened. I started high school after having been cooped up at home for 6 months recovering from spine surgery for scoliosis. I was really unsocialized when I started school that September. and had to force myself to do things that involved talking to people I didn't know. I'd set little daily goals for myself until I got used to it again. It was painful. I imagine much of the world will feel this way when isolation ends though. Whenever I have to talk up front at school, but I actually speak loud enough. I just don't like looking at the people. I'm a really shy person, not so much online, and definitely not shy with my friends. Me too. When giving some kind of presentation I speak loud just to hide my nervousness, and sometimes I also feel like I am shouting. I was super shy when I was little. My mom would constantly tell me that everyone thought I was rude for hiding behind her and not speaking. It made it 1000x worse because then I assumed everyone thought I was a terrible person and everyone hated me. My dad always told me I was being rude too, and honestly it only made me more shy and probably contributed to me developing social anxiety. Forcing shy people to be social through guilt doesn't work. In middle school I didn't have any friends in my scheduled lunch period, so I had to find some people I sorta knew to sit with. It went well for a while until this one girl just started being extremely rude. She would just randomly start picking apart the way I looked to someone else sitting at the table out of nowhere, and I would just keep my head down and eat and pretend like I didn't hear anything she would say. I'm a decent looking female, but it really did a number on my self-esteem. Frick you, Jonna. Well, Jonna sounds like the most obnoxious scoundrel to ever exist on the face of the earth. My birthday happened during vacation from school and I never failed a subject, so I didn't celebrate with my class before. Until my senior year in college, where we got vacation classes in preparation for the board exams. It was a joint class of 2 sections and our class president took it upon herself to surprise me. Boy was I surprised. I was sitting in front of the class as always, designated seats, and the president announced it and the whole room sang happy birthday to me. I am not kidding when I say I sank in my chair until half my upper body was gone and wished the ground would swallow me whole. Best man speech in front of 100 plus people. I knew it was coming almost a full year in advance and agonized over it for basically that entire year leading up to it. I recited it at least 1000 times in my head. It was sheer terror when I went up to do it. That said, in the end, somehow, I actually did pretty well with it. I received a lot of compliments and they seemed genuine. So the experience itself wasn't the worst, maybe just the time leading up to it. This is like me but when getting shots. The anticipation up to it is always awful, but in the end it isn't bad. Not really as shy anymore cause I think I just don't give a frick anymore, but when masks first were required I kinda felt hidden. Then when I had to go in public where masks weren't required or show my face without it, I felt kinda vulnerable for some reason. Yeah, I feel the same. Growing a beard helped me a bit, so maybe try that if you're a dude. A lot of my friends and my girlfriend have told me they thought I was really weird, annoying, rude, etc. upon first meeting me due to my bad social skills. I hate this so much when I think about all the relationships I've missed out on due to people making assumptions about me because of it. In college, my professors just love giving us projects that end up with class presentation. I told a professor how I hate speaking in front of people cause I'm shy, awkward, stuttering my words when nervous. He said try your best. The week of, he sent out an email that said, it's Brenna's favorite part, the speaking part. Gee thanks. WTF, I'm P. I was far worse as a child. In 5th or 6th grade, I would get bused to a learning center once a week for a gifted program. My very first day, we were supposed to get up and talk about a painting the class had been discussing. I have always had a really quiet voice, I still do, and on top of that I was pants shittingly terrified of new environments and speaking in front of a class. I had barely gotten a word out and the teacher yelled at the top of her lungs, "This is not for you," and railed on about how I needed to speak louder. The class was not just for me, I was selfish, etc. So then I tried to finish with my voice shaking, my heart in my throat, and fighting the tears that were forming so I wouldn't also be the quiet, nerdy kid that cried in front of the class. I'm in my 40s now and not nearly as shy, socially terrified as I was then, but I still remember it, and that feeling, clearly. Back in 7th grade, I forgot a pencil and didn't have the courage to get up and ask for one. I finally got the courage, but my teacher doesn't keep pencils on him, so he told me to go to another classroom and ask for one. Me being me, a shy, socially awkward teenager, didn't get up and just sat there. He kept getting louder and louder and more aggressive, telling me to go get a pencil from another classroom, to the point where I actually started crying. Yes, crying. In school, in class, in front of all my classmates. Eventually, he got up, walked me outside the classroom, talked to me. I can't remember what he said, but he comforted me, and went into another classroom to get me a pencil. Still my worst memory there, but he was a great teacher. I looked at the food menu beforehand and picked a food I wanted to get. Go to the counter, ask for that food, and they had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. I just left without a word. I was so embarrassed. Never asked for food there again. This happened to me too. At a bakery I was going in for a friend. Ask for 3 flavors of a certain sweet. Guy says they have never had those, so I just ask for random flavors. Go home, see which flavors they are. Exactly what I asked for. Hate that guy so much. Teacher spent 30 minutes harassing me for being too feminine for a guy. I remember I was crying while everyone else was laughing at me. That's fricked up. The first time I decided to speak up in class, a person who had been harassing me yelled out, "EWW, that's what you sound like. For the sake of our ears, you should probably just never speak again." I posted here a second ago, but I changed my mind. This was worse. In high school biology, we were doing frog dissections. I got put in a group with a bunch of boys who kept teasing me the whole time. I was the only girl. They made me go clean out the tray at the end of class. There was a long line because there was one sink in the back of the classroom. Because I was in a group of morons who would rather goof off, I was the only girl in a group full of boys who acted like frat boys. I was last in line. The boy in front of me kept trying to chat me up. I responded tersely because he had this smug look on his face. He kept looking back at me and washed his tray and instruments very slowly. As soon as he's done, the bell rings. Then the teacher said no one can leave until I finish cleaning my tray. She saw the kid in front of me. BTW. She was still punishing me for IDK what reason. Everyone predictably started screaming at me to hurry up. I ended up bawling while cleaning as fast as I could. Boys in the back of the room started laughing at me. I turned to the teacher, face full of tears, and begged her to let the class go. I would stay as long as it took to get done. She crossed her arms and smirked at me. I managed to finish quickly, but I was still sobbing on the way out. I ended up being 1 minute late to the next class, but thankfully that teacher didn't punish me. She saw I was in tears and asked what happened. I was blubbering too much to make much sense, so she gave me a mini Zen garden to play with outside and told me to calm down as long as I needed to. A week later, my friend told me she heard girls from my class talking crap about me and saying it was embarrassing that I cried. She told them to shut the frick up. Weirdly enough, that teacher was nice to me for the rest of the semester and I even got an A in the class. She asked me to join the science club. She was the club advisor in following years and always smiled when she saw me. I have no idea what the actual frick happened or why she treated me like that. I did end up being able to articulate what happened for my next period teacher after that BS class. That teacher had several decades of seniority, so it's possible she complained to the administration and got that teacher in hot water or something, which is why she was nicer. However, I wouldn't know for sure. I hate the teachers who punish the whole class for one person's actions. It makes even less sense BC you didn't do anything wrong. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.